A violent Antifa mob has attacked and swarmed Senator Hawley's D.C. home, threatening his wife and newborn baby. Washington, D.C. is becoming absolutely chaotic, as reports of Antifa arriving in Washington, D.C. on buses and other reports are going through. Now, according to Senator Josh Hawley himself, these were Antifa. The Gateway Pundit here says violent leftist mob, and that's true. And I'm sure that many of them were Antifa and groups like BLM. We've seen it before. BLM, Antifa, these left-wing mobs going up to Republicans and conservatives and Trump supporters' homes to attack them, to threaten them, and in some cases destroy property. Now, the worst thing about this has been the mainstream media's response. The media does not condemn Antifa. They do not condemn these violent left-wing mobs. The police do not arrest them. Worse off, if you defend yourself, your own home, with a firearm, in many cases, it is Trump supporters who get arrested. Do you remember the St. Louis couple? They were arrested for brandishing a firearm after a violent leftist mob busted down the gate to their neighborhood. Busted it down. Went on their lawn and started threatening them. And this mob was armed with guns. The left-wingers are creating a world where if you're a conservative, if you're a Trump supporter, you're not allowed to defend your own life or your own property. This is where we're at, folks. And as January 6th approaches us, I fear that this is only going to get worse. But we're going to talk about this, folks, and kind of go through the story here, as well as Wisconsin, which has just passed a resolution to give Trump the electoral votes of the state. Here we are in the Gateway Pundit, folks. Breaking. Antifa scumbags swarmed and attacked Senator Josh Hawley's Washington, D.C. home on Monday night. The senator was back in Missouri at the time, but Senator Hawley's wife, Erin, and their newborn babies were at home this time. This is the modern-day Democratic Party. Their fake news media will no doubt ignore this latest attack on a mother and her baby. Now, I mentioned this earlier, but the media, which is so often controlled by the Democrats and the left wing, never talk about this. Oh, the moment that a poor left-wing Antifa or BLM member gets hurt, oh, all of a sudden it's headline news. Evil white bigot attacks an innocent Antifa who was simply burning down a neighborhood. And this is the way the narrative goes. Because what we have is not a media establishment. I've been thinking about this lately. We don't have news in this country. We have propaganda. I see article after article after article talking about the Trump phone call. And as I mentioned, that phone call is complete fake news. The phone call is real, but what is not real is the claim that Trump was asking a Georgia politician to basically forge 11,000 votes. That's not what happened. What Trump said is, we've already found over 300,000 what we believe are fraudulent votes. And in this state, I only need like 11,000 votes to win. They only had to find that many. In other words, they believe they have evidence that proves they won Georgia. And yet the media is spinning it as if Trump was trying to force him or pressure him into making up votes. Fake news. But this is what our news media does. CNN, NBC, ABC, they're all equally guilty. They spread fake news, and that is why Democrats, and what I believe many of the left are in this country, low information voters, are a huge problem. All they read is the headline. Now here on Twitter, Josh Hawley himself, he says, "Tonight, while I was in Missouri, Antifa scumbags came to our place in D.C. and threatened my wife and newborn daughter, who can't travel. They screamed threats, vandalized, and tried to pound open our door. Let me be clear. My family and I will not be intimidated by left-wing violence." It's a sad day and age where you have to worry about your wife and newborn child because of a left-wing mob. And this is my problem with the unconstitutional actions of the Democrats. They've been restricting our gun rights and saying that we don't have a right to defend ourselves. You want to know why? You want to know why the Democrats want to take your guns? Because they enjoy it. They enjoy it when Antifa comes and threatens their political enemies. They enjoy it when the violent left-wing mobs come and attack conservatives. They are sociopaths, they are dangerous, and if you ask me, they should be fired and dragged away from their positions of power. Now, for those of you wondering why they attacked Josh Hawley, it's because he's a constitutional lawyer, and he's planning to contest the election on January 6th and contest the Electoral College. The violent left-wing mobs are going around and threatening people trying to fight against what many believe has been an unfair and dishonest election. I want to show you just how bad the mainstream media is when even Fox News was attacking Josh Hawley, spouting absolute lies on national television.
Are you trying to say that as of January 20th, that President Trump will be president?
Well, that depends on what happens on Wednesday. I mean, this is why we have the debate.
No, it
This is
doesn't.
why
I mean,
we
the
have
states,
votes.
by the Constitution, say they certify the election. They did certify it. By the Constitution, Congress doesn't have the right to overturn the certification, at least as most experts read it.
Well, Congress is directed under the 12th Amendment to count the electoral votes. There's a statute that dates back to the 1800s, rather, 19th century, that says that there is a right to object, there's a right to be heard, and there's also a certification
Right,
process.
that's from 1876, Senator, and it's right. the...
So you can see that even news outlets that are supposedly conservative absolutely lie to the American people. This guy's a constitutional lawyer. That's what he prides himself as. A senator from Missouri, and as far as I can tell, a completely stand-up guy. Fox News lied to the American people. It doesn't matter that the results have been certified. If there is a challenge, if there's any question of dispute, of pending litigation, legal cases that have gone unheard thus far, then that means that people have a right to object, even without any of that. Republicans in Congress have a right to contest the election. Now, Pence says that they're planning on showing all of America the massive amounts of evidence that many of these places had unconstitutional processes and, yes, fraud. Signed affidavits, witnesses, physical evidence, video evidence. It's all there. But that's what's most disgusting about our current political climate. Democrats and left-wingers are pretending that it doesn't exist because either they are, one, low information, like they're clueless and ignorant, or two, they are lying. And, I think I can highlight that with the following article. So this is from W Top News. It says, downtown DC quiet ahead of Wednesday planned election affirmation protests. I'm going to read you the following quote from a local citizen. He says, quote, "I think the election was absolutely fair. I personally sent a mail-in ballot," said J. Law Johnson, 18 of Clinton, Maryland. "You haven't seen something like this ever before. In a history where people are calling elections fraudulent without any information, without any evidence at all."
Absolutely
wrong.
This statement is completely and utterly wrong. There is evidence, there is information. In fact, much of it has been ignored by the courts, and not because the evidence was bad, but simply on procedural grounds. In other words, the courts have been screwing around, saying F you to the American people, F you to fair and honest elections, basically putting a middle finger in your face and saying, we're not going to even look at the evidence. It was totally fair. It's totally honest. No, it's not. And since when was the last time an 18-year-old knew anything about politics or anything about the news? This is why I personally don't even believe that everyone should have a right to vote. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about is Wisconsin. Here with Maximus Deploribus. FYI, Wisconsin update. Wisconsin legislature to introduce a resolution to desert the state and award it to Trump on Thursday. Resolution does not require a governor signature. Already posted online. Now, I don't know if this will be passed. I really doubt it. But hey, it could. And it would be really interesting because we currently have, something like 100 Republicans who are going to contest the Electoral College. They're going to present evidence, we're going to have these challenges, and then there's still the question of Mike Pence. He's vice president. It is his job to count the Electoral College votes, and many people have argued that he has the power to say, I'm not going to count these votes. There were competing electors casted in multiple states, meaning Republicans also put in formal votes for President Donald Trump. What happens in a case of dueling electors when Mike Pence chooses the Republicans' choice? Nobody really knows, but it could happen. Things are going to get spicy, folks. But I think what we can say for sure is that this may be the most pivotal moment of American history, and what happens is going to completely determine the future of the United States and the future of the American people. But that, my friends, is merely the obvious. Well, that's all for now, folks. What do you think about this story? Let me know down below. Do you have any predictions for Election Day? Oh, and newsflash, for those of you planning to go to the Washington, D.C. protest, I have heard reports that Antifa is going to dress up as Trump supporters. I saw a post that said they're going to wear their caps backwards, so keep an eye out for that, and stay safe, folks. The last thing we want is conflict. We're there to protest, we're there to have our voice heard, so stay safe and stay cool. If you want to support the work I do, consider joining me on Patreon or Subscribestar, as I am funded by viewers like you. Thanks for watching. This has been Mr. Obvious, and I'll see you all next time.